Janis Joplin remains one of the most electrifying voices in rock history, a woman who shattered conventions with her raw, soul-bearing performances. Her influence on music is immeasurable, yet she was famously selective about who she collaborated with. Despite sharing the 1960s rock scene with some of the biggest names in music, Joplin turned down opportunities to work with several legends, sometimes due to creative differences, personal clashes, or simply because she refused to compromise her artistic vision. This deep dive explores the untold stories behind Janis Joplin's refusals to collaborate with iconic musicians, revealing the fiery independence and unyielding spirit that defined her career. One of the most tantalizing what-ifs in rock history is the collaboration that never happened between Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison. Both were volcanic performers, known for their uninhibited stage presence and deep blues influences. Rumors swirled in the late 1960s that they might record together, but the idea quickly disintegrated due to their explosive personalities. Joplin and Morrison moved in the same circles, often crossing paths at Los Angeles clubs and music festivals. However, their interactions were far from harmonious. According to bandmates and biographers, Joplin found Morrison insufferably arrogant. She reportedly called him an egomaniac after an encounter where he drunkenly interrupted one of her performances. The tension between them peaked at a 1968 concert when Morrison allegedly heckled her from the audience, leading to a backstage shouting match. Beyond personal animosity, their musical approaches clashed. Joplin thrived in raw, emotionally charged performances, while Morrison leaned into poetic mystique and theatricality. She once remarked in an interview, "I don't need some drunken poet screaming over my music." The idea of them recording a duet, perhaps a blistering blues-rock fusion, could have been legendary, but their mutual disdain made it impossible. Eric Clapton, already a guitar god by the late 1960s, seemed like a natural collaborator for Janis Joplin. Both were deeply rooted in blues, and Clapton had expressed admiration for her voice. At one point, there were discussions about Joplin joining forces with Clapton's band, Cream, or recording a blues album together. Yet the collaboration never materialized. One major factor was their differing musical trajectories. By the time Joplin rose to fame with Cheap Thrills, Clapton was moving toward a more refined, experimental sound with Cream and later Blind Faith. Joplin, meanwhile, was all about unrestrained emotion. She once said, "I don't want to sound pretty, I want to sound real." She reportedly felt Clapton's playing was too polished for her gritty style. There were also whispers of ego clashes. Bandmates from Big Brother and the Holding Company recalled Joplin complaining that Clapton acted like he was God's gift to music. Whether true or exaggerated, it was clear that Joplin wasn't interested in sharing the spotlight with someone who might overshadow her. Had they worked together, their blues chemistry could have produced something extraordinary. Imagine Joplin's raspy wail over Clapton's searing guitar on a track like Crossroads. But in the end, their artistic pride kept them apart. The Rolling Stones and Janis Joplin were two of the biggest acts of the late 1960s, and a collaboration seemed inevitable. Mick Jagger was reportedly fascinated by Joplin's stage presence, and there were talks of her appearing on a Stones album or even joining them on tour. But Joplin had reservations. For one, she was wary of the Stones' dominating aura. She didn't want to be just another guest singer in their shadow. She also had little patience for Jagger's controlling tendencies. According to roadies and insiders, Joplin once walked out of a meeting after Jagger suggested changes to her vocal approach, snapping, "I don't need some British pretty boy telling me how to sing." Beyond personality conflicts, record label politics played a role. Columbia Records, Joplin's label, was hesitant to loan her out to Decca, the Stones label at the time, fearing she'd be lost in their machine. A Joplin-Jagger duet on a song like Gimme Shelter could have been earth-shaking, but Joplin's fierce independence and refusal to bend to anyone's vision ensured it never happened. Bob Dylan and Janis Joplin were both signed to Columbia, and label executives dreamed of pairing them for a blues-folk-rock fusion project. Dylan admired Joplin's voice, and she respected his songwriting, but their styles were worlds apart. Joplin, who lived every song like a raw nerve, struggled with Dylan's abstract lyricism. She once admitted in an interview, "I don't always get what Bob's saying, man. I just feel the music in my bones." Dylan, meanwhile, was notoriously elusive in the studio, often reworking songs on the fly, a method that frustrated Joplin's more direct approach. There was also an unspoken competitiveness. Some insiders suggest Dylan was intimidated by Joplin's vocal power, fearing she'd overshadow him. A studio engineer once recalled Dylan listening to a playback of Joplin's "Piece of My Heart" and muttering, "Nobody should be able to sing like that." Had they collaborated, it might have been a fascinating clash. Imagine Joplin tearing into Like a Rolling Stone with her signature ferocity. But in the end, their artistic differences were too vast. Janis Joplin and the Grateful Dead were both pillars of the San Francisco psychedelic scene, and at one point, there were discussions about her joining them on stage, or even becoming their lead singer. But the idea fizzled quickly. For one, the Dead's endless improvisational jams didn't mesh with Joplin's tighter, blues-driven style. She reportedly told a friend, "I ain't got time for 20-minute solos, baby. I need to feel it, not wander around in it." Additionally, both Joplin and the Dead were deep into the era's hard-partying lifestyle, and their managers feared the combination would be a recipe for disaster. Jerry Garcia later admitted, "Janis was too much of a force. We'd have either set the world on fire or burned out in a week." A live jam between them might have been historic, but Joplin's need for control and the Dead's freewheeling chaos made it an impossible match. Janis Joplin's refusal to work with these legends wasn't about ego. It was about authenticity. She wasn't interested in fame for fame's sake. She needed her music to be real, unfiltered, and entirely her own. Whether it was Morrison's arrogance, Clapton's polish, Jagger's control, Dylan's obscurity, or the Dead's chaos, she walked away every time something didn't feel right. In an industry that often pressures artists to conform, Joplin remained fiercely independent. She didn't need duets with rock gods to secure her legacy. Her voice, her passion, and her refusal to bend are what made her immortal.